Welcome, folks, to this edition of the 700 Club. A radical breakthrough in the treatment of Alzheimer's. Well, maybe not. The FDA has approved a new drug to fight the disease, but at what cost? The drug is astronomically expensive. Even worse, there's no proof that it works. Medical reporter Laurie Johnson explains why.
Biogen's new Alzheimer's drug, Aduhelm, is a monthly intravenous infusion with an annual cost of $56,000 before insurance. Still, questions linger about its effectiveness. One study showed no effectiveness at all. The other showed a slight reduction in the rate of decline. While this limited evidence prompted an independent advisory committee to discourage approval, the FDA still gave the okay.
What's important about this is that there was, of course, some controversy and very complicated sets of data that many people had different opinions about. But importantly, the FDA actually approved this today under accelerated approval.
Alzheimer's expert Dr. David Perlmutter is concerned about significant brain bleeding and swelling detected in trial participants, and the fact that Aduhelm is for people with mild symptoms.
It's actually designed to be used in people who have what's called MCI, or mild cognitive impairment, which, to be fair, is a harbinger for future Alzheimer's, but this should not be construed as a treatment for Alzheimer's disease.
The drug claims to remove amyloid plaque in the brain, but Alzheimer's researcher Dr. Dale Bredesen says that substance is simply a barrier protecting the brain from attacks.
The big problem here is that people have equated amyloid with Alzheimer's. These are two quite different things. The amyloid is a response to the what's inducing the Alzheimer's, whereas Alzheimer's is the disease. And just getting rid of amyloid, that's not getting rid of Alzheimer's.
Bredesen says the best way to reverse the disease is by identifying and treating things attacking the brain, like metabolism, pathogens, and toxins.
Medical reporter Laurie Johnson is here. Laurie, why do you think it's such a mystery? I mean, Alzheimer's is a horrible disease. Why don't you think the FDA can understand what Bredesen and his associates are saying?
Well, it's a great question, and it all boils down to the desire for a drug, one drug that people can take a pill or get an IV infusion that addresses this very complex disease. What Dr. Bredesen discovered is that there are many different causes for Alzheimer's, many different things that contribute to it, dozens of them, and he has developed this test people can take to see which one of these they have and then address these different things through a protocol or lifestyle changes. So it's a complicated disease. There's not just one thing causing Alzheimer's.
He tried to get approval of his techniques, and they wouldn't give it to him. They said, you've got to give us a pill. If you can't get a pill, we're not going to approve it. But the FDA gave accelerated approval on this other one. Now, what does accelerated mean?
Accelerated approval is for diseases a lot of people are suffering from, for which there's really no treatment or cure. And so the idea is, even if there's the tiniest whisper of hope, put it on the market, let people start taking it right away and continue to test it. The problem, Pat, is that when people say an Alzheimer's drug works, a lot of times what they're saying is it works to remove amyloid plaque. But listen, hear me. Just because you remove amyloid plaque does not mean your memory comes back. And so the best case scenario for removing amyloid plaque is that for a very short period of time in a very few people, the progression of the disease slows down, but it doesn't stop the progression of the disease, and it certainly doesn't reverse the symptoms. But with the Bredesen protocol, we are seeing that. The complete halt of symptoms, and in many cases, the reversal of the Alzheimer's symptoms. If people want to know more about the Bredesen protocol, go to our website, cbnnews.com. There's lots of information. We've had Dr. Bredesen on the program many times, as you know.
last question. He says essentially Alzheimer's is the same inflammation that causes so many of these other diseases. Is that what it is? It's inflammation.
Absolutely. Inflammation in the brain. And there are a lot of different things that cause inflammation, Pat. He identified dozens of them. Some of them have to do with diet. Some of them have to do with infections, like bacterial infections like Lyme disease, or viral infections like herpes. Other things can cause this inflammation, toxins that we're exposed to in our environment. And some people are at greater risk if they have this APOE4 gene. Some people have one. That raises your risk of Alzheimer's about 33%. If you have two of these genes, then you have about a 75% chance of developing Alzheimer's. So there are ways to sort of silence these genes to kind of make them not express themselves in people. So this is why some people have Alzheimer's and others. They often have the genes, but you can, as I say, kind of turn off those genes with the Bredesen protocol. It's very fascinating, very exciting, but it does require a lot of work on the part of the patient. And a lot of people don't like that. They'd rather take a pill. But remember, this was the same situation with type 2 diabetes. When doctors figured out what causes it, eating too much sugar, that's how they used to treat patients. They told them to stop eating sugar, and it worked until they developed insulin. And it might be the same type of thing with Alzheimer's. We can treat the symptoms now if we can stop doing what is causing Alzheimer's.
Laurie, thank you for that, Jim. And folks, I want to tell you, I've just finished a book about Ronald Reagan, and you know he slipped into a later decline. But two things happened to him. Number one, he got shot, and he got shot badly, and he was near death, lost almost all of his blood. There was a double shock. The second thing is, later on, he was out riding an untried horse down in Mexico, and the horse got spooked and began to buck. And he didn't just buck, but he bucked frantically, so much so that Reagan was thrown off the horse and hit his head. They didn't think there was anything wrong, and then later they found a hematoma at the Mayo Clinic, and he had to have that operated on. So those two things, the next thing you know, he's got Alzheimer's. But people have just ignored that, especially that fall where he hit his head. I was sure that was what did it. But the two shocks to his system triggered that terrible decline that he had, this great man, when he knew he was going into the area that he'd never return. But we don't know yet, but thank goodness for Bredesen and these other doctors who are saying, look, there is a way to get around this thing, but you don't do it with one pill.